Robin Hood's Day, written by Josephine Feeney. Read to you by Miss Keating. On Friday, when Mrs. Khan had finally got us sitting quietly on the carpet, she read us a story. It was about Robin Hood, a brave and kind man who'd been on lots of adventures with his merry men, escaping from a wicked king. It was so exciting. When Mrs. Khan finished reading, she said, "Jimmy, it's your turn to have Patchy Patch for this weekend." "Yes," I said. I was very happy. I'd been waiting to take Patchy Patch home for ages. Our teacher, Mrs. Khan, knitted him for us a long time ago, and she's so clever that if Patchy gets a little hole, she knits another patch over him. That's why he's called Patchy. Today he looked even better. He was wearing a new Robin Hood outfit. "Now make sure you take good care of him," Mrs. Khan said very seriously. "And on Monday morning you can tell us all about the adventures you had with Patchy Patch." Chelsea and Dad were pleased to meet Patchy at home time. "We'll have to think of something really, really exciting to do this weekend," I told them. Dad said, "Tell you what, Jimmy, how would you like to go on a train journey with Patchy Patch?" "Yes, please, Dad," I said. "Can I come too?" Chelsea asked. "Of course you can, silly," I said. On Saturday morning, we left the house very early. We caught the bus at the top of our street. I showed Patchy Pat the view from the window. At the train station, Dad brought our train tickets, a newspaper, a colouring book, some crayons and a notebook. He said, "You can write down everything you and Patchy Pat see today. Mrs. Khan will be pleased with that." On the train, we found seats next to the window, with a table to sit at. Dad took out his paper, and me and Chelsea took out our things. I opened my notebook and chewed the end of my pencil to help me think about what to write. I asked Dad, "How do you spell adventure?" "Adventure," Dad replied, smiling. "What shall I write now?" I asked. "Write down everything you see out the window." The train began to slowly move out of the station, creeping past the black brick walls and the wooden fences, the shops, the car park, the hospital, the school, and the sports centre. "How do you spell hospital, Dad?" "Don't worry about your spelling, Jimmy. Just write it the way you think it might be spelled." "I can spell it," said Chelsea. "I bet Patchy Pat isn't very good at spelling," I said. The train left all the big buildings behind and began to go past the blocks of people's houses. I could see swings and slides and rabbit hutches. Then we moved out into the countryside. In my book I wrote, "This is what Patchy Pat can see. Trees, trees, lots of trees. Why are birds trees?" "It's just trees out the window, Dad," I said. "Why don't you have another look, Jimmy? There are some hedges and fields, and look, over there, some cows, and in the next field, some sheep and horses." "How do you spell hedges, Dad?" I asked. "Hejes, Chelsea spelled. In my book I wrote, "Trees, hedges, cows." Then I said, "Dad, what do you call those stripy black and white birds?" "Magpies," Dad said. "How do you spell—" "Don't worry about writing any more, Jimmy," Dad said. "Just sit and look out the window and enjoy the train trip. You can tell Mrs. Khan about it on Monday." So I just looked, but looking made me tired and I fell asleep. When I opened my eyes, everyone was standing up and taking down their bags and coats from the shelves above. "We're here, Jimmy," Dad said. "We're in Nottingham." Nottingham? That was where Robin Hood had lived. I put Patchy Pat and my notebook in my rucksack, and me, Chelsea and Dad climbed off the train. Patchy Pat. Jimmy put me safely in his rucksack, with my head just peeping out the top. I liked the train. It was quite an adventure, although I did get a bit tired of looking out the window and watching all those trees rushing past. I've had a few adventures in my time. Well, you do when you live in a different house nearly every day. There was the night Millie took me to a swimming lesson and left me in the pool. I was wet through. I had to lie on Millie's hall radiator all night. The next day, Mrs. Khan said I wasn't well enough to go to anyone's house. Delaney took me to her dancing class and left me on top of the piano for hours. Meanwhile, she went to the library and a cafe and the shoe shop and only remembered me when she was on the bus back home from town. On Monday, Delaney didn't tell Mrs. Khan she forgot about me. She stood up and said sweetly, "I took Patchy Patch to my dancing class, and then we went to the library and Kate's cafe, and he helped me choose some new shoes." "You little storyteller," I thought to myself, but I didn't say anything. The best adventure I had was with Prakash. He took me to the park and we played in the woods. He put me in a really high branch and made me a lookout. He told me to shout when Ahmed crept up the hill. It was great. We spotted Ahmed and jumped out and frightened him. Boo! I've had lots of other adventures, but that day in Nottingham wasn't like any of the others. I was so excited as we walked towards Maid Marian Way. Maid Marian, named after Robin Hood's girlfriend, because Robin Hood came from Nottingham, Jimmy said. Jimmy talked to me as we walked along. He calls me Patchy, which is a nice nickname. Jimmy's dad said we should go to the cafe first because he could do with a cup of coffee. Chelsea said, "Race you to the cafe, Jimmy and Patchy." She won. Jimmy and Chelsea chose big cakes. Then they sat down and Jimmy put his rucksack on the floor next to our table. I didn't like being on the floor so far away from Jimmy. Suddenly, a big baby from the family on the next table crawled across and spotted me from behind. She pulled at my hair and dribbled over my new outfit. Jimmy and Chelsea were too busy eating their cakes to notice that I was in terrible danger. The baby pulled and pulled at my hair until I popped out of Jimmy's rucksack. She put me under her fist and dragged me along the floor as she crawled back to her mummy. I tried to shout to get Jimmy's attention. I looked over at him as the baby pulled at my Robin Hood clothes, but he didn't notice. Jimmy finished his cake and wiped his hands. He stood up and put his rucksack on his back. Jimmy didn't check to see if I was still peeping out the top. His dad said, "Come on, let's go," and they walked out of the cafe without me. What shall I do now, I thought. When Millie left me in the swimming pool and Delaney left me on top of the piano, I knew that it was just a few minutes away from being rescued. But here in the Robin Hood Cafe, I was a long train journey away from safety. What would Mrs. Carn say on Monday when Jimmy had told her she left me in Nottingham? Would I ever see Mrs. Carn again? "Come to Mummy," a voice said. A lady leant over and picked up the baby. "Oh, look, someone's left their cuddly toy," she said. "What a cheek. I'm not a cuddly toy. I'm Mrs. Carn's Patchy Pat, if you don't mind." The lady looked at me. She had kind, gentle eyes. "I'll put you over here next to the trays where you can be seen." I sat watching people come in for lunch and waited for Jimmy to return. I hoped and hoped and hoped that he and his family would come in for something to eat. He must, I thought to myself. If there's one thing I've learnt on my adventures, it's this. Children are always looking for something to eat. Chelsea. I love big sticky cakes. I like it when shiny sugary bits touch the top of my cheek. Dad knows how much I like them, and he let me have a huge one all to myself at the Robin Hood Cafe. "Keep us going till lunchtime," he said. We went in the lift to the Robin Hood Centre. Dad paid for us to go in, and then a man dressed as an outlaw took us to the costume room. I put on a long dress. I felt like a princess. Jimmy dressed up as Robin Hood, just like Patchy Pat. We all looked great. When we were ready, we walked up the stairs with the man. At the top of the stairs was a little carriage, and we sat in it. A man lifted a bar down onto our laps, and we moved along into a dark tunnel, like on a fun fair ride. "I'm scared, Dad," Jimmy whispered. "You'll be all right," I replied, even though I felt a little bit frightened too. A few seconds later, the tunnel opened into a small village. There were little houses and people sitting around the campfire. We could smell the wood smoke even though there wasn't real, just pretend. When I realised it was Robin Hood and his merry men, I was excited. The carriage moved along the cable into another tunnel and then out again, besides a castle. We could see the evil King John leaning out of his narrow window. He was waving his fists in a very wicked way. Eventually we reached the end of the ride and the man was there to meet us. He undid our safety belts and said, "Follow me." We walked behind him until we got to a big wooden door. The man opened it. "This is Sherwood Forest," he announced, "and in a minute, if we're quiet, we'll see Robin Hood and his merry men. They're going to ask for your help." "Jimmy," said Dad, "I need to go to the toilet." Dad was a bit cross. So was I. "Why didn't you go before we came in?" "I didn't need to go then." "You should have gone anyway," I said. We walked out of the pretend Sherwood Forest and back to the toilets. "Can I bring Patchy up to the forest?" Jimmy asked. "I'll get him for you," I said. Dad says I'm good at getting things. I ran to where we left our coats and bags, almost tripping over my Maid Marian dress. I found Jimmy's rucksack and opened it. Patchy wasn't there. I looked in the front pocket. He wasn't there. Maybe Jimmy left him in my bag. I checked. No, he wasn't there either. "Come on, Chelsea," Dad called. I rushed out to where Dad and Jimmy were waiting. "Patchy's missing," I told them. "Are you sure?" Dad said. "Yes, I've checked in all the bags." "Oh no," Jimmy cried. "I've lost him. What will Mrs. Carn say? Nobody's ever lost Patchy Patch." "Poor Patchy," I said. Jimmy started to cry. "Don't worry, Jimmy," Dad said. "We'll look for him." "Now, when do you remember seeing him last?" Jimmy cried and cried. "At the station, I think. I checked it was in my bag before we got off the train." "Right," said Dad. "We'll retrace our steps back to the station. I'm sure we'll find Patchy on the way." We left the Robin Hood Centre and walked along Maid Marian Way, back towards the station. This is what we do when we've lost one of our gloves. We walk along and look at the pavement, and sometimes we see a bright yellow or blue spot in the distance. We run towards it, and there's our glove. But we couldn't see any bright spots at the station. We went to Lost Property, but they hadn't found Patchy. We walked back to the Robin Hood Centre and looked along every wall and hedge. Still no sign of Patchy Pat. "What am I going to do?" Jimmy said. His face was red with crying. "I've lost Patchy and he's all alone." "Let's have some lunch. That'll make us feel better," Dad said. "I'm not hungry," Jimmy said. I wasn't either. I was worried about Patchy Pat. But Dad took us back to the Robin Hood Cafe anyway. Jimmy went to get a tray. And guess who was sitting on the ledge near the trays? "Patchy!" Jimmy shouted. He rushed over and took Patchy Patch from the ledge. "Patchy, I found you!" Jimmy was so happy he did a sort of dance with delight. "I know," I said. "Let's take it in turns to carry Patchy Patch." "Good idea," Jimmy said. And so we did. And me and Dad and Jimmy and Patchy Pat had a great day in Nottingham with Robin Hood and Maid Mary. On the way home, we all fell asleep on the train.